Question number 7, Charles Chauvel.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Justice and asks what assistance will be available to families unable to afford the fee of over $900 she proposes to introduce to access the new Family Dispute Resolution Service.
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, the premise of the member's question is incorrect. The fee for the new Family Dispute Resolution Service is not over $900.
Charles Chauvel.
Point of order, Mr.
Point of order, Charles Chauvel.
I seek to table a document from the Minister's office released 2 weeks ago indicating that the fee to access...
Order, is this a press release, though?
No, sir. It's a Q&A issued by the Minister.
Leave us sought to table that document from the Minister's office. Is there any objection?
And, sir, to be clear...
But I've put it to the House. I've sought leave. Is there any objection? There is objection. Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, can I ask that you review the systems within your office which allowed this question to be accepted if in fact it was not properly authenticated?
Order, the issue is an interesting one. Indeed, authentication for information for authenticating a question is often accepted as information in a press release, and that's often what is supplied. Just because a question is authenticated to be within the standing orders for it to be asked does not automatically mean that information contained in it is correct. And I draw that distinction to members of the House that authentication does not of itself imply that the information contained in a question is correct. And there's no way that my office can identify whether or not it's beyond our means to be able to ascertain whether or not information is correct. We can only authenticate it. We can only authenticate it in terms of the information provided, and that's what was done here. And the Minister, it appears, is refuting the accuracy of the information provided, and the Minister's at liberty to do that. Charles Chauvel, supplementary.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Now that the Family Court review has been completed, will she reconsider the Legal Assistance Sustainability Bill's proposed restrictions on entitlements to civil legal aid, including its requirement that the parties should meet the costs of counsel for the child?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, that bill is currently being considered, and of course with the Family Court review and the hopefully shifting of many applications into family dispute resolution so that they don't need to go to court, there will be expected to be some more changes coming to the Legal Assistance Bill.
Charles Chauvel.
Question, Mr Speaker. In addition to the 1,200 New Zealand families every year that her officials say will be deterred from using the Family Court by the new $900 fee, what modelling has been done on the deterrent effect of requiring families to pay for the cost of counsel for the child and the new legal aid entitlement threshold of an income of only $22,000 per annum?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, in fact, the advice from the officials was that about 1,200 families would be able to have their matters dealt with in the Family Dispute Resolution Service. In other words, preventing them from having to go to the family court to get their matter resolved. I would have thought that most people would think that when we have 26,000 applications to the family court in the 2010-11 year, and they only involve 8,000 families, that tells us that there are an awful lot of applications and repeat applications from the same families whose matters have simply not been resolved to their satisfaction. Family dispute resolution will be about helping them to come to the right conclusions.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Charles Chauvel.
Mr Speaker, the Minister addressed the premise of my question, but not the substance of it. And the substance asked her about the modelling that has been done, if any, on the deterrent effect of requiring families to pay for the costs of counsel for the child and also to be met by a new entitlement.
In order to save time, I'll allow the member to repeat his question because I sense that there's some validity to his point.
Thank you, sir. The question is, in addition to the 1,200 New Zealand families every year that her officials say will be deterred from using the family court by the new access fee, what modelling has been done on the deterrent effect of requiring families to pay for the costs of counsel for the child, and the new legal aid entitlement threshold of an income of only $22,000 per annum.
The Honourable Judith
Mr.
Collins.
Speaker, the member has again put statements in his question which I don't believe give the full and right context. The officials have indicated that around 1,200 families will not need to go to the family court because they will be able to have their matters resolved by the Family Dispute Resolution Service. I would have thought that every responsible member of Parliament would think that was a good thing.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Charles Chauvel.
I'm sorry, sir, but I'm renewing my objection.
No order on this occasion, having listened very carefully this time to both the question, the member resumed his seat, and the answer. The Minister's answer was a perfectly valid answer. The member made a statement at the start of the question. He didn't ask what modelling had been done. He made a statement about advice around deterrence to use, if I remember correctly. And the Minister argued, or in her answer, argued that statement was incorrect, and she's at liberty to do that. Supplementary question, Charles Chauvel.
No, sir, I'm not.
Is this a further point of order?
Yes, sir. I'm just trying to understand your ruling.
Order.
Order.
The ruling is very simple to understand. If the member goes back and looks at the question asked, he made a statement before asking what modelling. He said, given. Now, when members do that, they run a risk. There have been some speakers who have not allowed that. I allow that because I think it's quite important, because sometimes that given might be given the Minister's answer, previous answer. I think that's good that members have listened to answers. But the risk is, if a member makes a statement like that prior to asking the substance of the question, the Minister's at liberty to dispute that statement, and that's what the Minister's done, and that is a perfectly fair answer.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Charles Chauvel.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to be very clear. I didn't begin my question with given that. I did make a statement. I said in addition to. But, sir, surely if the Minister disputes the statement, she's entitled to do that, but is still required to answer the question.
Not at all. Not at all. Minister, if members include statements in their questions, Minister is perfectly at liberty to dispute the statement made, and that's the end of their answer.
Supplementary question.
Charles Chauvel.
Mr. Speaker, thank you to the Minister. What advice has she received about how the closure of the Manukau County's Community Law Centre next week and the threatened closure of other community and specialist law centres around New Zealand will affect the ability of family members to get access to the advice and representation they need to resolve domestic disputes involving vulnerable children?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr. Speaker, I'm fully aware that there are actually, in effect, better services being put in place to deal with the situation in Manukau, and the member would like to, I'd be happy to provide him with a briefing, but it is quite a sensitive matter, but actually better steps are being put in place.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Charles Chauvel.
Mr. Speaker, my question asked what advice had the Minister received about the effect of these closures on family law services. I don't think that was addressed.
Well, the Minister said that better services will be provided. That may be, she didn't clarify whether that was the advice she had received. I'll give the Minister the opportunity to clarify that. The question did indeed ask what advice she had received, and I think that should be answered. The Honourable Judith Collins.
The point is, Mr. Speaker, point of order, is that
point of order, Judith Collins.
Supplementary question is a very long way from the primary, and if the member wanted to have very detailed information, he could have put it down as a primary question, but I have already offered the member a briefing, which is quite sensitive given the fact that there are some sections put in place.
The Minister is going on beyond what is necessary for point of order right now. I accept the point the Minister is making, that to go from dispute resolution service, to family dispute resolution service to the family court, but it's not unrelated, and that's why I don't think it would be fair to rule the member's supplementary question out. I believe that would be unfair. But the question asked what advice the Minister had received on that matter. Now, maybe the Minister doesn't have that information with her today, and that would be a perfectly fair answer given the distance from the question asked. But I think it is unreasonable to ignore the question. And so I think the Minister should, because of the time that's passed, I invite Charles Chauvel to repeat his question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister, what advice has she received about how the closure of the Manukau County's Community Law Centre next week and the potential closure of other community and specialist law centres around New Zealand will affect the ability of family members to get access to the advice and representation they need to resolve domestic disputes involving vulnerable children.
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, I don't have that information with me, and I do invite that member to write to me about it, because so far I don't believe I've received any communication from him.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Charles Chauvel.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In respect of civil legal aid and the family court, as well as access to justice in that court, what has changed since the President of the New Zealand Law Society, Jonathan Tandem, said that the Legal Assistance Sustainability Bill and related measures were misleading about the savings they would deliver, would have an impact on child poverty, would make savings in one place but result in cost blowouts in others, and fail to serve New Zealand's most vulnerable people well?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'd suggest for a start the period of time, because there's been a lot of water gone under the bridge since Mr Ten made those comments, and he is certainly very pleased with some of the work that we've been doing in this.
Question number 8, John. I beg your pardon, total row of level. Supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, if whānau do not have access to the new Family Disputes Resolution Service or any form of dispute resolution in the event that they cannot afford the fee, what proposals will she be putting forward to ensure that whānau are able to access these services without income limitations preventing them from being able to do so?
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Mr Speaker, that's a really good question, and in fact the answer is that people who cannot, or families who cannot afford the fee or their share of the fee, will be able to be subsidised so that they can in fact access it. We're very keen to get more people out of court and get these matters sorted out in a family situation.
Question number 8, John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.